Great. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to RPGs We Love Too. We're going to be starting off now with Final Fantasy IV 80% no64, which is going to be run by the wonderful Penguin8r. And joining us as well, we're going to have Rivers McCown and Vonnie Vaughn as our commentators. I'm Scally Kitty, and I am your host for this run. Before we get started, I'm just going to let you all know we do have naming incentives for this run, and our first two are going to be ending in about 5-7 minutes. So if you would like to get a name in for Cecil or Kane, we'll be cutting that off once we hit the prologue scroll at the beginning of the game. So currently they are Edward and Edward. If you would like to change that, now is your chance. I'll be watching carefully. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Penguin8r, Rivers, and Vonnie.
Hello, my name is Penguin8r, and I'll be running Final Fantasy IV.
Hi, I'm Rivers. I have second place in this category, second place in any percent no CW, and I also made a little ROM hack you might have heard of called Free Enterprise, which I helped co-create with Boardface.
Hi, I'm Vonnie, and I have friends that are good at this game. That's why I'm here.
Don't let him lie to you people. Vonnie's also pretty good. He just doesn't run this particular category, but he's quite accomplished in some of the other categories of Final Fantasy IV. So we're happy to have him here.
And I'm happy to be here, certainly.
I'll go ahead and get the run started here.
Good luck, Penguin.
Thank you. A little bit about my history with this game. I've been speedrunning on and off for about 2 years now. no64 is kind of my category of choice. There are a few other categories that we run.
Penguin, because I know this is a part where we can kind of maybe adjust some things. Game audio is a little loud compared to us here on Discord, so if you can lower that maybe a little bit, that'd be excellent.
I hate when Scala rolls the siege of the prologue.
Yes, I get to be subjected to all of the vanilla jokes for the next 3.5 hours.
Much better. Thank you, Natara.
Hopefully the audio is better. I actually had lowered you. I thought you were too loud. So hopefully I didn't overcorrect in the other direction now.
It sounds good now.
So go on your history with the game, Penguin. Tell us about it.
Yeah, there's not actually that much to say. I spent like a few months trying pretty hard at this category, and then, well, we kind of started playing randomizers. There's Free Enterprise now, so I've spent more time on that Final Fantasy IV randomizer. But on and off, I try to mess with no64 a bit and come up with a few strats. I've probably saved us like 10 seconds over the course of a 3-hour run. Rivers, on the other hand, is much more accomplished in this category. He's kind of designed a lot of the strats I'll be using today, so really happy to have him here today.
Yeah, the history of this category is kind of long and varied. Kind of started, basically it revolves around the endgame route, which characters you want to level up. Because characters in this game outside of Kane, since he's out of the party at the time, can all get the pooled experience of one grind fight, basically. And we run the rest of the game normally with no real other deviations. The entire point of this end game is kind of what character you want to use. And for when we first started, when it was back in the days of Abda Jr. in the 2013s or whatever, it was both Rydia and Rosa getting levels. Around 2015 or so, when I started coming into speedrunning, it was Edge getting levels, and we would throw darts. And then I came and redesigned this all in about 2017 to use only Rosa as the main damage and get the reflect kill on Zerebus, which scared the hell out of everybody for about 3 months, and then we figured out how to actually do it.
So one thing that I want to, just because I've seen it come up here in chat, they're asking about the no64 category, what that means. So the any percent category of this game involves doing something called a 64 door glitch, which when you get to the dwarf castle, allows you to do just a mind-bending wrong warp that skips pretty much about the last 40% or so of the game and warps you straight to Zeramus, and you cheese him with a glitched kill. We will be doing none of that. We will be essentially it's not glitchless. There will still be glitches that will be exploited, but that particular glitch will not be used, and that adds over an hour to the speedrun itself.
Yeah, a broader term for this category would just be kind of NMG, no major glitches. And so you can see Penguin finally has control of his character for the first time in like 4 minutes, and he's immediately changing his battle speed and battle message to 1. Those shouldn't change for the rest of the run. We're going as fast as we can.
So you saw that he went into that armory and he just picked up the tent. There are some other things in there, but all we want is the tent. That's going to come in very handy for a fairly, I guess it's probably, you consider it the most major glitch that we're going to see in this category. And that's going to be coming up in about 6-ish minutes or so.
So I saw people joking about seeds in the chat. So do you guys want to talk about the actual relevance of seeds that I set up already in this round?
Sure. Yeah. So when you so there are one of 256 different encounter seeds that you can have when you are starting a game or even starting up from a saved file, and that is determined by normally it's determined by the frame that you press A on the title screen. However, we have found ways to manipulate this so that we always land on a particular seed to start out, and that seed is 92. And what that will do is it will allow us to get all the way from Barren Castle to Mist without taking any random encounters at all. Now, a chocobo helps us along the way, but we can set it up so that we are, automatically saving at least 30 seconds or so in the first 10 minutes of the game by manipulating the seed that we're on. Now, further, there's going to be are you going to do a hard reset, Penguin?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's going to do a hard reset because it's part of that Mist clip that's going to be coming up. And then after that, he's going to be aiming for a particular seed that's optimal for the rest of the run. And that seed is 43. So again, that's going to be, with some timing on the menu screen. If he misses it, obviously it's not run crippling. It's just going to add a little bit of time. He's not going to have the optimal encounters, but he's going to try to set it up so that he has the least amount of encounters possible.
I will admit, recently I have not been able to hit the C43 very consistently, so hopes are not too high for that, but I'll go for it anyway.
Yeah, 43 is the best seed, obviously, but also the other seeds around 43 are also all very good. So it's kind of an area range that he's hitting for. To hit this, he has to power off the console hard, so that doesn't actually remember any of the RAM, and then power it on and try to hit an audio cue. So that's what we'll be trying to do here as we get the last little bits of story in.
Yeah. Now, something else that should be noted is that when Penguin does that hard reset, he's going to have a chart that he's looking at. Shoutouts to Exodent, who is a longtime member of the Final Fantasy IV speedrunning community that has poured hundreds upon hundreds of hours into breaking down a lot of the really nitty-gritty science of this game. And what Penguin is going to be able to do is he's going to be able to chart exactly where he's getting the encounters based on the number of steps that he's taken in between each encounter. And then he'll be able to kind of, by process of elimination, go through this chart and determine which of the 256 seeds that he is on. Natara just linked a very important website in chat that's chock full of just great information about the speed run for this game. So if you want to get a little background as to what we're talking about, check out that website. That's going to have everything that we're talking about.
Alright, I am going to rename Kane and Cecil right here, so if I could have those names, please.
Well, to no one's surprise, Cecil and Kane are currently Edward and Edward. So thank you everyone who donated for that. While y'all were talking, though, we did get in 2 donations, and if it's okay, can I read them out real quick?
Sure.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Oh, also, Penguin, you might want to raise the levels on your mic a little bit just to match ours a little bit better. So, currently, I would like to thank DJ ATC for donating $21.47 to name Rosa Ultros, and Natara also donated $30 to name Rosa Ultros, and she does wish that she could stay up to watch your run. Wishes you good luck and expects a new world record for you. And also, we also have a $2 donation from Zane Gridon, that just came in to name Fusoya Edward. So I will get on updating all of that on the back end.
Great. I despise all of you.
Yeah, same. All right, so we have Penguin dipping down into this chocobo forest to grab the chocobo. This is going to accomplish two things. Well, really three things. First of all, it's going to allow him to walk faster. Second of all, he's not going to get any encounters while riding the chocobo. And third, it does not advance the step counter when you are taking chocobo steps. So going down to the forest and grabbing that chocobo is very important to the beginning of this game.
So you can see Penguin actually did get an encounter. He probably botched his 92 a little bit, trying to get set up in a hurry. It happened, but yeah, he took one encounter.
And it looks like that's going to
be fine the rest of the way. Yeah. So our first boss of the game is the Mist Dragon. Bonnie, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Mist Dragon here is kind of like a de facto tutorial on the new ATB system, which stands for Active Time Battle, which, unlike the three Final Fantasies that preceded this game, that were all turn-based, this has action in real time. And how this is going to be demonstrated is after a little bit, the Mist Dragon here is going to turn into a mist form, during which point it cannot be hit with physical attacks and will actually counter if you attempt to do so. And the way that you get rid of this is you just have to sit here and wait for it to go. So,
as you'll see, he kind of made some interesting movements in his inventory right there. He's actually setting up for another glitch that's like all the glitches in FF4 happen bang, bang, bang right at the start of the run, and that's kind of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And so what Penguin did there as far as when he jumped with Kane, you use an audio cue with the music. Depending on how you do your menuing for setting up the glitch is going to depend on what cue you use. So he just uses ones that's comfortable for him. So that way he knows Kane can jump, the message will come up that says, now get ready to fight, and then the next thing that happens is Kane will land.
Nice jump kill. 68 is almost as high as the Kane can go. So right now what we're going to see is Penguin8r is going to pop this tent, and we're going to do something called the misclip glitch, where
what you might have noticed was that right before he went into that menu, he turned around and immediately faced left without moving. So what that does is the combination of doing that, along with using the tent and then doing the save and reset here, it's going to shift you're tricking the game into thinking that you're one tile over further than you actually are. And then when you reset, you're actually going to be on the tile that would actually put you into the town. And instead, you're going to see what the result is here. So Penguin has entered the town from the right-hand side. Now, normally, you wouldn't be able to do that because there would be no way to get around to it. You'd have to enter from the left. Now, why this is a problem is that before you can even walk into the town, there's a trigger tile there that will trigger a cutscene that kicks you out of the town once it's all done. You're not supposed to be able to get into this part of town until you've gotten the airship, but that's much later in the game. So what we're going to do now is what he's already done was the items that he duped, he sold them for over 3 million gold. He went into the shop, he bought some dancing daggers, he grabbed the tiara, and right now he's going to grab the change rod. And these are all items that are going to have various uses, some immediately, some a little later on, but it's going to make your early game characters much more powerful than they normally would be, and it's going to make getting through this part of the game not just easier, but in some cases feasible, because it would be really tough to do so without these things.
Yeah, the history of FF4 speedrunning kind of takes a turn when this thrill is discovered, this whole misclip. Used to be a very hard and unforgiving run early on, because you would have to rely on Rydia casting Chocobo on the Antlion. You'd have to rely on Tella hitting his lit ones. The Dancing Dagger really revolutionized a lot of things, made it a lot safer and a lot easier. So the story of FF4 right now is that Cecil, our deposed commander of the Red Wings, has been sent to deliver this package. Later ones they call it, I think, a bomb ring. But basically, it blows up the entire town, and the king wants these summoners dealt away with. And now Cecil and Kane are trying to help and/or abduct the last one, depending on which text you want to read.
So what Penguin did there is trigger the cutscene that I was talking about. Of course, we do it after we get all of the things that we want to get, because this Titan that the girl has summoned to cast an earthquake here is going to kick you out of the town, and it's going to make the terrain to your left impassable so that you can't get back to the town, at least not immediately. So now that we've accomplished everything we want to do, we don't want to skip the cutscene altogether. We just want to do those things first, then trigger it, and then we can move on. So now that Penguin is going to be walking in the overworld, he's going to keep track of the number of steps that he takes before he gets an encounter. And that'll, he'll mark that down, and then he'll count the number of steps between now and the next encounter, mark that down, so on and so forth, and by process of elimination, he'll be able to determine what seed he's on. This is going to be important for doing something called taking extra and optional steps. There are going to be very specific places as we walk throughout this game where we can actually burn steps that will advance the step counter, but in most cases will not result in you getting encounters while you're taking those steps. And we're going to do this because it's going to we're either going to skip encounters we would normally get, or we're going to get encounters that are less dangerous or more favorable, I guess you could say.
So I actually already know from the first encounter that I'm on seed 40, so PB tonight.
Yo, even with naming characters, nice.
40 is not bad at all. And just to add to what Lonnie was saying about skipping over, if you continue on the game normally without triggering that cutscene, you will softlock when you get to Damsian. So it's kind of not an optional thing. You just kind of have to do it.
But then you can run Octo%.
Some have.
That would
I
not
ran
have
Octo% in the RPG Gauntlet. It was fun.
That would not have a 3-hour and 25-minute estimate, Scott.
No, it would not.
So what happened during that battle was probably kind of subtle unless you were looking for it. This is the first demonstration of a battle technique called run buffering. So what that means is, so the way that you run in this game is you hold down the L and the R buttons. Now, if you do this in certain encounters where you are unable to run, you're going to get a message that pops up that says can't run. Now, the importance of this is that while that message is popping up, everyone's ATB, including the enemies, is frozen. So you can use this opportunity to go into your menus and input commands without the enemies advancing their ATBs. This is going to be really crucial in certain spots where it's going to allow you to take turns before enemies, or it's going to have enemies taking turns later, which is just all kinds of advantageous.
So you also saw Penguin put the tiara on Rydia there. Without the tiara, Rydia actually will get one shot by the Octomam anytime that she gets hit, basically. So this was actually a big discovery, even though watching the fight, you still see her get destroyed all the time. Getting this tiara to this spot really helps this fight become a lot faster than it was when FF4 was first started being speedrun. Scala, I heard that there might be some trolley donations out there.
There is indeed a trolley donation. Our dear friend Demarine donated $6 saying, "Yay, FF4. This is going to name Porum Rivers, and he knows why.
I despise everybody as always. Anyway, Bonnie, do you have any insight on Tella here as we come up to him?
So this is the old stage Tella. He's a much maligned character for those who are familiar with this game, especially in the vanilla part, and I'll be speaking pretty much exclusively to that. Tella has this unfortunate reputation for missing spells that that are non-damage spells, and they're namely the stop spell, the life spell, and in some cases weak. But other than that, we basically can't do this speed run without him. There are certain bosses that we cheese to great effect, and those strategies all revolve around Tella. So the RNG of RPG speedrunning giveth and taketh away, and it's embodied in this smelly old man.
Yeah, he's kind of the focal point of most of the run, be it trying to get him enough magic power, be it trying to stop him from actually ruining things. He kind of is the fulcrum point for the first hour and a half of this run.
It's actually wrong about my seed. It's either 45 or 46.
See, that's what it looks like to me, but I didn't want to correct you. But it looked like you were right there.
It's just been so long since I was that close that I forgot which one it was.
And the determination of what seed you're on, it's very important to have it done by that save room there that had that little cutscene with the campfire, because that room in certain seeds is going to be the first place where you will be taking the extra steps. Now, the seed that Penguin is on, it does not call for those steps there, so he just left immediately. But sometimes you can kind of do what I like to call pirouettes, which is where you kind of just walk back and forth in place, burning 2 steps at a time. Sometimes you only have to do 2 extra steps. Sometimes in certain places it calls for you to do in excess of 100 steps at a time. So every seed is different as far as what it will have you do in order to get the optimal encounter string.
Right, and as you can see, as Penguin walks through here, managing those encounters is a very important part of the speedrun, simply because these take so much time every time you get in them. If you happen to get back attacked, it's even worse. If you happen to get surprise attacked, it's even worse. If you happen to even pop up messages while you're running away, you lose time. So it's one of those things where the fewer encounters you have, the easier and more optimized the run is. And we spend a lot of time obsessing over these seeds on purpose, because this is actually a lot of time you can save if you get it all right.
Yeah. And actually, you it's very subtle, but if you saw in that encounter with the 4 frogs, he got a strike first message. Striking first is bad because that message takes time to resolve, whereas if that message just doesn't show up, you would run away in the same amount of time otherwise. So striking first actually wastes time. It's kind of ironic. One thing that I don't want to gloss over was that before Penguin left the cave that he was just in, he took a small detour down to pick up the Darkness Sword. This is going to be a pretty important upgrade for the damage output that Cecil is going to be doing for about the next half an hour or so of the game. Okay, so you saw a little pirouette there. Before he went in that door before this room with Octoman, you saw him just take 2 steps back and forth real quick. That was deliberate. He did not, sneeze or something like that there. Penguin knows what he's doing.
Yeah, the Octoman is actually weak to the Darkness Elemental that's on that Darkness Sword too, so that makes it even more imperative to pick it up here. And as you can see from this first fight, Octoman starts out very fast. He wants to put that Darkness Sword on right away, get Lit 1 going, get Dancing Dagger going with Rydia. Your main goal in this fight early on is actually to put out as much input as you can, so that you can get his tentacles worn down faster. That way, you actually slow him down enough to where you can stop Tella and just do damage with your main DPS, which is usually our boy Edward in the middle here, and sometimes it's Rydia when she decides to survive long enough.
Yeah, and Rydia is doing this big damage output by way of the dancing dagger that we bought there in Mist. Now, we bought 10 of them because there's going to be several characters that are going to use the dancing daggers. Now, you also saw that Penguin just cast Stop on himself. Again, this is deliberate. Penguin knows what he's doing. Here's why. The damage output that you get from Tella when it comes to his lit spells, measured against the amount of time that it takes for its casting animation, in the long run just isn't worth it. So what we do is we stop him so that we don't even waste time having his turn come up. So this is all very minute speed game strategies here that Penguin is employing, and he's actually making it look really easy right now. He's one of the best at this, so it's really no surprise.
Yeah, he's also, you can see during that little freezing cutscene where text popping up, he was actually moving around a lot of his inventory. Inventory management is actually really key to both this run and the no-CW speedrun, because there are a lot of spots where you'll want to move things around, but opening the item menu itself from the game's main menu is incredibly slow. But when you find time to do it in the battle, like Penguin did there, you can actually start setting things up in advance way before you need them, and that's kind of what he was trying to do there.
Yeah, it would otherwise be downtime, and while it might seem like it's just a second or two there, and sometimes it is, we squeeze every last bit of usefulness out of those periods of downtime to just set things up for the future. So the formation switch that Penguin does in this menu here accomplishes a couple things, but the most important part is that when we have Edward, who's going to be joining us, like actual Edward, who's going to be joining us in just about 2 or 3 minutes or so, he's gonna automatically be thrust into the middle slot of your formation there. Now, this is going to be very important for using Edward, not only for the Water Hag fight, but also for the Fabul Gauntlet, and also for Mombong as well, for that matter.
Don't worry, people talking in the chat. Tella will get his revenge in this game. He's still a big part of this run. Just right now, that his spells, he's a little bit more useless. By the way, there's a Spoony Bard.
Oh yeah, you might be aware of bards and spoons and their association with one another.
Well, we have a little bit of a lull now that our famous line has been said. Can I read out a very quick donation?
You got it.
We received $5 from Neon Gray, and they wrote, "Wow, how could anyone be so mean to a Kotaku acclaimed speedrunner? Anyway, $5 to name Porum Rivers."
Just gonna go ahead and delete the Free Enterprise Discord. Be right back.
Hey now! Hey. I think you have to talk to a few other people before you do that.
Oh my goodness. His admin powers might get a little he might be flexing his muscle a little bit there.
Yeah, I'm about to say, Natara points out Draven technically owns it, so haha.
I never said it was rooted in logic. I just said I had the feeling.
Okay, so tell us bad, he leaves. We smack around Edward some more, and he's like, okay, I'll join you. And he's like, here, dude, you can take my sweet land speeder, too. And we will use this to great effect. Much like the chocobo that I was talking about before, when we are using the land speeder, the movement that we do with it will not advance our step counter either. So when it comes to doing step route management, this is something to take into account as well. Also, with when it's something to take into account, we kind of missed talking about it here in the Damstein Castle. There are certain tiles in rooms where it will advance the step counter and some where it won't. This is actually going to come into effect in Fabul. I don't know what your seed calls for in Fabul, Penguin, but there might be some areas where we'll use, carpets or invisible tiles or whatnot to very strategically not advance the step counter in certain places.
Yeah, I'll be avoiding all the carpets that I can in there.
Yeah, the carpets, the stair tiles, the little cracks on the floors, all of those don't actually advance step counter. So whenever Penguin has a chance to avoid one of them, he will. The antlion cave is pretty straightforward in this version. You basically just want to avoid all the enemies you can, head right to the antlion, and deliver a good dose of dancing dagger to the face. Penguin may or may not pick up the safety life that takes no steps. I'm not sure. But other than that, won't even bother. There's a bold man, folks.
There's only one counter. Got all of them in the first room, though. 4 before the first
I also noticed that Penguin opted to do the awkward route in the first room of Antlion.
Top route, best route.
Everybody's just going to troll me all night. That's fine. As long as it makes money. As long as it makes money, folks.
Imagine a place where Vonnie gets shielded from trolling. This is amazing.
I just need to make sure everyone knows that top route is best route. Listen.
Oh, man. Get
out of here.
This is flagrant.
Get entirely out of this room.
Yes,
Go away, Natara.
No apology.
Go away. All right, anyway, back to the speedrun here. So we have Antlion. Now, normally, this is actually a fairly dangerous boss in the vanilla run because whenever you hit him with a physical attack, he will do a counter that does quite a bit of damage, especially if you are low level. However, this dancing dagger that now Edward is also throwing, as well as Rydia, is coded as a magical attack, thereby passing by the trigger for that counter, which allows us to basically make this boss a complete joke. You throw hopefully 3, but usually 4 dancing daggers, and you kill him pretty easily. He's not going to do any more than 1 damage to Rydia. He does maybe a max of like 6 or 7 damage to Edward. So as long as your levels aren't like absurdly critically low, the boss is basically free.
Right, and by keeping both of them alive through that fight, you can see he's already got 71 HP for both of them. Edward's going to pick up a little boost. Middle Edward is going to pick up a little boost during the next fight as well. And this should provide him with enough HP to be able to comfortably survive anything too scary at Mom Bomb, which is basically the main point of this experience route early on.
I think in order to clear up any confusion when we're referring to all these Edwards, the bard should just be referred to as Blondeward.
Well, here's the thing, though. Edward can have a different name. We haven't closed that incentive just yet. So, chat, currently, I'm going to read out the names that we have for our next 3 characters that we're naming, which is going to be Rosa, Rydia, and Edward. So, currently, Rydia is named Tifa. Edward is named Kate S2, and Rosa is named Ultros. And if you'd like to change that, this is pretty much your last chance to do so, because we'll be cutting that off after we defeat Water Hag.
And that will be in about 2 minutes, I would say. So, or maybe not even. So, you definitely want to get in on that soon.
Yeah, you gotta rush to beat the clock on this one. The Water Hag fight is not a lengthy fight. It is a lengthy cutscene, but it's not a lengthy fight. So please get those in if you want to rename anybody.
You see Penguin very deftly juking Kaipo Hunk by walking in a straight line and having Kaipo Hunk out of his way. So well done, Penguin.
Thank you. Yeah, all the NPCs are kind of on fixed RNG at the beginning. As long as you walk the same way, they'll always walk the same paths. As the run gets later, then there are factors that are pretty hard to control, so it gets to be random later on. But for now, I can know exactly where they'll be.
Yeah, the first thing that really throws off the NPC counter, so to speak, is the cutscene on Mount Hobbs where they burn up the ice that's blocking the way. That can advance the counter by a kind of random amount. So at that point, we can no longer reliably tell you where the NPCs will be. But up until then, yeah, we're good.
And taking the the detour to name characters here will also mess it up anyway, so it's about the same anyway.
The Dream.
Also, oh shoot, we missed my favorite text box in the game, which is now the whole purpose of a text box is to denote when someone is saying something. But there's a text box that just comes up and it's just Edward and then ellipsis. So basically, it's a box to tell us that Edward is saying nothing. Fundamentally useless.
So do you think this
Very
cutscene
minimalistic.
here like actually happens canonically, or is this just a dream that is happening?
I believe it's technically canonical, but it's a thing that happens.
Starting to think it could just be the dream. But he does
Oh,
get
are
much
we-
better.
Are we going to get into some Squall dies in the FF8 level of discourse?
I mean, we weren't planning on it, but
If we keep talking about FF8, I'm leaving.
Alright, I am done with Waterhag, so if we can cut off those 3 names, that'd be great.
So
All
speedrun
right.
speedrun history thing right here, real quick. That fight used to be really terrifying before we had dancing daggers for Edward.
yeah, you relied on Edward's extremely ferocious harp to do enough damage to kill, or I'm sorry, to hit Waterhag enough times to kill it, because it's not based on the damage you do, it's based on the number of times that you actually connect with it, which is 3.
Okay, I do need names now. Rydia's Tifa.
Sure thing.
right?
Rydia is indeed Tifa.
And the others, please.
Sure thing. So for Edward is going to be Kate S2. S capitalized, please.
It's C-A-I-T, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Rosa?
Rosa will be Ultros,
Ultros.
the best wife who has become the best husbando.
And I, think
I will fight you
recognize
all.
some of those names. Thanks to Tifa's Revenge and Kate Sith. I've seen them around playing Free Enterprise and people's chats, so thank you for your donations.
Yes, thank you so much. The next names we'll have will be Pelham and Porum when we reach Mysidia. Currently, Pelham is named Porum and Porum is named Rivers. So if y'all would like to change that, there's just your little update on where those stand.
All right, so here's a cutscene that a lot of people in the Final Fantasy IV community like to have fun with. They, say Rosa, or I guess what is it, Tifa, world's best grief counselor. So what's really happening here is that there's an impassable wall of ice. Where Rosa's like, "Oh wait, Rydia, you're a summoner. You can cast fire." And she's like, "No, I'm scared of it because my family died in a fire." And Rosa's like, "Okay, we'll suck it up and cast fire anyway." And so she's like, "Okay," and she does it, and then we move on. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, she's not the best grief counselor. She's only good at actually winning the game.
Slip as many of those in there as you can get, Rivers.
I'll keep them.
All right.
Don't worry.
Okay, good. All right. So we are about to approach the Mom Bomb fight, but before we do, we are going to encounter this very sneezy karate fighter here, and some would say that he is the second best character to use in the Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise randomizer. Anyway, that's besides the point. What we do here is we have a very scripted cutscene fight with these imp captains. Now, ideally, this gets done in 3 turns. You notice that Penguin did a very quick pause there, and the reason why is because we can tell by the damage values of that first kick whether or not we're going to be able to do it in 3 turns. And if we know we're not, we can try to do a little quick pause there to manipulate it to go. So now we're on the Mom Bomb fight. We're going to start out by doing a run buffer so that Edward can get that Dancing Dagger out as quickly as possible. The first phase of Mom Bomb here, you have to do at least 800 damage to it for it to get to its second, very brief, but very important for timing phase as well. So,
dang, those rolls.
Yeah, the rolls were really nice. So now we want to roll around to Yang's turn. We're going to do a kick at a very specific time after that exploding message disappears. This is going to get us to our third phase here. And what this is going to... Oh, okay. Oh, we're good. We're good. What we're going to do here is we're going to use the Dancing Daggers on the Grey Bombs. They have 100 hit points, so we want to use our more powerful attacks to kill them. The kick is going to do, hopefully, somewhere in the 28 to 30 damage range to the Red Bombs, and this is going to allow... oh no, we're not going to use an aim with Rosa here. What we are going to do is just going to keep throwing Dancing Daggers and make this a little easier. Get through this, and wow, very well done. Very well done. Penguin made that look very smooth.
So let me tell you a little bit about why we didn't use Aim with Rosa there, Vonnie. This is part of the new setup for getting the back row glitch on Cecil early in the game. Probably saves about 10 to 15 seconds if you set it up correctly and get the Fire Sword rolling for Val and the dolls. Basically, the gist of that is that if you put a back row weapon on any character, the character retains the back row glitch eternally. So they will always attack from the back row and do full damage, as well as attack enemy back rows for full damage. And that helps out a lot for those 2 particular fights. And then Cecil actually gets the Dwarf Axe and no longer has to worry about fighting, really.
All right, so you saw another example there of what, again, like I call the pirouettes, where we are doing some extra steps with our party to manipulate how we're getting our encounters going forward. What's going to happen here after we get off of Mount Hobbs is a pretty lengthy walk in between the mountain and the next place we're going to be going, which is the Kingdom of Fabul, which is where Yang is from. Edward took a faceplant there. That's fine. We're going to get a free heal before we do anything of consequence once we get to Fabul.
I'm surprised he didn't hide, actually. He's low enough HP, he'll start hiding if he's in critical. But I guess he had a little bit too much for that. The hide just takes up a little extra time.
Yeah, I think he only had like about 20 so hit points, and the hit was like 60 something. So he just went straight rip.
That was the first back, right?
Yeah, first back attack.
That's the first one I remember.
It's been pretty blessed run so far.
And not too bad for as far as back attacks go.
All right, he's going to drop a quick safety save here, and I can't say that I blame him, especially in a marathon, because Fabul, despite even your best efforts, and even someone of Penguin's caliber as a player, Fabul can just be really mean to you. So, and if it does, you can rip your run. It's not just a matter of time loss; it's a matter of run being done. So, what's going to happen here is that we are going to fight 6 fights in a row with no opportunity to menu in between, and we're also going to lose Rosa and Rydia from our party. So it's going to be done only with Edward, Yang, and Cecil. The focal point of this is going to be Edward throwing Dancing Daggers, but also throwing them first before anyone else acts. We are going to make very, very liberal use of the run buffer technique in here, especially when it comes to these general and fighter formations. These fighters can do, as you saw there, quite a bit of damage, specifically to Edward. Yang and Cecil, with the amount of hit points and armor that they have, they'll be able to tank quite a few hits. Edward, not so much. And the fact that he's already down to 41 hit points at the end of the first battle is not ideal. It's going to kind of take away all the wiggle room as far as the hits that Edward can take, but we're not done yet. So we are going to try to persevere here and just hope that things stay good with Edward.
Yeah, having tried to administrate a whole tournament for Paladin percent, this is one of the toughest segments for any new runner to learn. There's a lot of quick fingering involved with these menus, with these run buffers, and quickly going into throw the dancing dagger. So it's really difficult section for anybody to do. And then you've got to test it for 6 fights in a row, and you got to try to keep Edward up with no heal potions, no cures, no lives, nothing, no defensive equipment. So this is kind of the first big test of the game.
And what some people will do, especially when they're learning, is you actually have the option to turn down your battle speed, or I guess turn it up, if you will, as far as the value of the number goes. And what this will do is it will allow that can't run message to stay on screen for longer, which is going to be more forgiving when it comes to inputting your commands when you're doing the run buffer trick. So the fact that we've gotten through this third fight now with Edward still upright, we're in pretty much good shape to make it through no matter what happens here. This next fight with single gargoyle, we're not going to take any damage here. We are just going to throw a dancing dagger at his face, and this battle is over. It might. So he might take a wayward hit, especially with Edward being this low on hit points. He might take a wayward hit in this next battle, but if he doesn't, then we're home free.
Yeah, all that can happen at this point really is just time loss. K2 doesn't have to survive this fight for the party to actually win out, but it will cost them time in the next fight.
So what you saw here is the unfortunate effect of having K2 in critical HP status, which means that he will automatically hide. Now, why this is so problematic here in the Fabul Gauntlet is because even though these are, I don't know how to say this, even though these are considered just like single encounters, it has the boss flag on. So what Rivers, I feel like you can explain this better as far as why that makes Ed having the hybrid so bad here.
Sure. Not only does he take up time hiding that you would be using to run buffer, but also just the fact that he continually takes up these turns because he has the most speed at this section. So it's just constantly a battle to try to get through all of his commands to actually get through the fight. That makes it so tough.
Cool. There you go. All right. So here comes another cutscene battle where Dragoon is going to face off against the Dark Knight here. Ideally, what will happen is this, maybe? Yes. Okay. So ideally, what will happen is that Dragoon will jump on Dark Knight. Dark Knight will hit himself and put himself into critical HP status there. If that does not happen, then Dragoon will give us about 2 or 3 extra text boxes there, which sponges up double digits worth of seconds. So, especially when it comes to, as Rivers referenced before, the Paladin percent run, losing those 10 or 12 seconds to bad damage rolls can be it can be significant to your time.
And finally, somebody kidnapped Ultras. Took a long time, boys, but Golbez has got it from here. And Edward is going to flee off the crystal, stealing it from his buddy Edward. These names, man, it's hard to keep up with, but I'm trying.
The Edwardception is going to be real unless people donate to do something about it, which I highly encourage you to do.
I will say,
as soon
yes?
as we get off the boat that we're about to take a trip on, we'll be naming the twins Palom and Porom.
Yes, which are currently named Porom and Rivers. I will say that we do have one character who does not have any naming incentives towards their name, and that is Sid. So Sid's name is actually completely open. So if you would like to break the Edward curse or continue it, I'm not here to take sides. You can go ahead and donate for that if you would like to. Also, Vani this time being the one on point with the donate and the incentives. Links there for you in chat.
So as you can see, Penguin is not taking any of these steps on the carpet or the stairs that he doesn't have to. This is part of the step route manipulation, as we talked about earlier. Fabul has, I think, 10 optional steps this whole way. So depending on what seed you land on, you can actually you actually have a lot of different routes for how you want to get through here, and it's kind of interesting to watch runners make up where they want to take the steps here.
Just to clarify for Neon Gray, currently the character Porum will be named Rivers.
Oh, I hadn't heard that before. Interesting. Well, anyway, you saw the tiara got taken off. This is something that only happens in the no64 speedrun. In No Credit Warp, you never get Rydia again, so she's never actually useful beyond casting Warp one more time. Now that Rydia is going to be part of the final party and actually a pretty big damage dealing part of the couple fights after Dwarf Castle, this tiara is taken off and saved. So that's one of the differences between no64 and no-CW right here. Another one obviously being that you didn't see any duped claws of any kind, which Ronnie knows all about.
Yes, indeed, I do. And I was just going to say, when it comes to removing the tiara from Rydia, it's actually something that I do in my no CW runs, because I opt to put it on Porum when it comes to doing twin casting on Mylon. Just because that's a particular strat that I use. If you were doing Carrot, then the importance of having that tiara diminishes significantly. But if you're using any kind of twin casting strats on either of the Mylon fights, then having that tiara is actually pretty useful. And especially if you're doing it for Paladin percent, would allow you to skip obtaining the Change Rod in Mist and not having to do that walk down to get it and all the way back. Probably saves you about somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would say, about 18 or 20 seconds. So again, for a run that can be less than an hour, that's a pretty significant amount of time.
Yeah, there's a lot of different optimizations and kind of ways to play with how you want to do the Mylon and Mylon Z fights, depending on how comfortable you are with the two glitches, how comfortable you are with picking up things on a certain route. But yeah, there's, because Paladin percent has been a big entry level category for this game. There's been a lot of different routes designed for both Mylon and Mylon Z.
Penguin, may I safely assume that we will be seeing what I like to call vegetables and receptacles on the top of Mount Odi?
That's the plan. I hope we'll actually see them.
Okay. Well, we will certainly get our blessed RNG warmed up for.
Oh, but that's all skill. There's no RNG involved in that, right?
Rivers?
Well, I'm more worried about the skill part than the RNG part.
Okay, that's under your control. That's fair.
We shall see. No matter what, these glitches are always they're always a good show. Succeed or fail. So hopefully Penguin will succeed, and we won't have to talk about backups. But there's always a possibility.
And that's true, but I will say this: when it comes to doing backups for those strats, next to, the two people that I'm talking to currently, I would say are probably the two people that I would trust the most with these backup strats. So Penguin, I will assume that he will be as cool as a cucumber no matter what RNG throws at him in those two fights.
So plot-wise, we're now running into the Elder of Mysidia. At the very beginning of the game, Cecil, or Edward, I should say, stole the crystal from Mysidia, and now he kind of has to take the Walk of Atonement, and the Elder being the prolifically amazing guardian that he is, was like, hey, this guy sacked our village and stole our crystal. Why don't I entrust 2 6-year-olds with him? And we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I just realized this is going to be really dumb. It's bad enough that we're going to have multiple characters named Edward and not the one that actually is Edward named Edward. But if this character gets named Rivers and I refer to it, it's going to be confusing whether I'm referring to the named character or the actual person. So, people donate some more money, please.
All right, can I have those names now, please?
Well, as it turned out, we did have a donation come in to change one of the twins' names. I will say, Porum will still be named Rivers.
Actually, can I have Palom first?
Palom, I actually want to read this donation, which very simply says, wow, Demarine has done such a fantastic job since she joined the admin team of Free Enterprise. I'm sure she'll do an even better job now that she's named after Palom. So Palom will be Demi.
Deme, correct?
That is correct.
Porum is Rivers.
Porum is Rivers. And thank you so much to a certain Kotaku claimed speedrunner for giving us that donation.
I just assumed that we were naming Porum after the bodies of water that all connect in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I didn't know it had anything to do with speedrunning. That was
very weird aside, honestly. But so as we continue on this path down to Mount Ordeals, at some point you may see Penguin stop a little bit in a fight when he knows he's going to have the first turn with Edward here, and he'll take that sword and bop Rivers right in the face. Rivers, our white mage, actually has a lot of HP, and for the purposes of the glitch, we kind of want her to be down near 30 or less. So at some point, because we're trying to set up for that character glitch, you will see Rivers get bopped right in the face.
And Rivers got swooned there. The Black Sword has a chance of inflicting instant death like that. Slightly better if it just hits her, because I'll have to light
and that was unfortunate because I saw the damage roll was like a mid-70, so that's pretty ideal for what you want that HP level to be at for this glitch.
Yeah, but it's something that happens, I would say, more than 50% of the time. So that Black Sword on Rivers, who has no real defense at that point, is pretty hard to not kill instantly.
All right, so we had a wall of ice before. Now we have a wall of fire, and we are going to have Dem here is going to blast it with some ice, do a little dance, and then is going to one of my favorite little tropes here of the run ensues, where Rivers will smack Dem, and you get that little doo-doo, that delightful pow noise. This happens a couple more times in the game.
Happens in real life too.
In fact, yeah. In fact.
Yeah, Bonnie made a
I have
good thing out of that.
I have the emote to commemorate it because I like it that.
So the love of Ultros and Edward is everlasting, as you can see from that last cutscene. And as we go up the mountain, we're going to run into our boy Tella, you can still donate to name him actually. And Tella is hanging out on this mountain where Cecil's trying to become Edward's trying to become a paladin, because he's heard that there's a great power here, and he's interested in relearning all of his spells. And hey, if it happens to have Meteo, so he can avenge his daughter's death, hey, that'd be great too. So the party decides to get together with our boy Tella, and we've finally got enough characters to actually do this glitch.
Yeah, And this glitch that Rivers is referring to is what's called the Mimic glitch. The twin ability that Dem and Rivers have is normally used to cast either the Flare or the Comet spell. You don't have a choice there. RNG decides that for you. But what we can do here is, simply put, we can get them into that. We can get them into that twin casting status, and then we can kill one of them off to kind of partially break it, but still maintain a certain element of it that will allow Palom, who will be the one surviving, to mimic things that he normally shouldn't, and some wackiness and immense amount of damage ensues here. So I think I'm going to kind of, once these fights come up, I'm just going to kind of sit back and let you all just watch, because especially a lot of the menuing in the fight itself is a lot of fun to watch. So don't go anywhere. You want to keep your eyes glued for these next two fights.
Yeah, it's also good to stay quiet for his audio cues. So if we can have a moment of silence, please.
Serious time, as they call it.
It'll still be okay.
Wow, I don't think I've ever seen her survive 2 drains.
Me neither.
Thought that might happen. I think I just got bad RNG. Might have been the early run buffer at the beginning.
Yeah,
Cecil's
just a little
turn
bit
didn't
off.
pop up in time. His second turn was a bit slow, which was kind of foreboding.
So to kind of go over what was supposed to happen there, but you didn't see. So we've got Demi right now in this mimic glitch state where he will throw or duplicate to the best that he can any item that's thrown. Right now you see him mimicking Cure 2. His turns had never come up anymore, but the purpose of this was to try to mimic glitch the trash can throw, or sorry, the carrot throw onto Mylon. And unfortunately, the ATB timing of that fight didn't quite work out for Penguin, so now he's going to have to go to his backup strats, which will be twin casts and mainly twin casts and black sword attacks. Which was not a bad effort at all. Just I think that the initial first run buffer kind of threw the chances off.
And when it comes to when it comes to using these twin strats here, the way that we do it here with Carrot on Mylon is much more complicated and finicky and reliant on timing than what you're going to see the Mimic glitch on Mylon Z next. That one is there's not as many steps, and it is much more forgiving.
Yeah, the Mylon fight is actually harder because of how many enemies are on the screen. ATB kind of can take some weird turns here or there if in this game when there are more enemies on the screen. So in this case, with those 4 zombies start with, sometimes you just get kind of a bad pattern, and really nothing Penguin could have done about it after he got to the point of no return there. Carrot is really hard to do. Even people for like big time runners of this game, they'll sometimes mess it up. I'll still mess it up from time to time. Trash can is, as Vonnie was saying, a little bit easier, a little bit more forgiving.
And of course, the other thing too is that the time save that Carrot would give you as opposed to doing twin strats is significantly less than the time save that you get from a successful trash can. against twin strats. So if you're going to learn one over the other, doing the one for Mylon Z is absolutely the way to go. But well, again, serious time again, so we can do it.
You can talk during this, it's easy.
Okay then.
It is a lot easier, yeah. So basically what he's going to do is set up a series of run buffers here where Demi will be casting Ice 2 on Rivers. Tella will be casting Stop on Cecil. And once those are both off, he will be selecting an item in Cecil's menu and then switching it with, in this case, the carrot. Usually with the trash can, but since we missed carrot, it's the trash can, carrot in this case. Stop will go off. The Mimic Glitch character will throw, not the Cure 2 that he selected initially, but instead the carrot item, which happens to go, has the item ID of, I think this one was Fire 3 times 8. So takes quick work of Mylon Z, and always a really fun glitch to see hit. Very excited the Penguin got it.
Indeed, yes, that was very well done. And again, when it comes to the Four Fiends and a couple of other bosses, when they die, they do that very... they have that kind of shaky dissolving effect. That takes quite a bit of time to resolve. That is a fantastic opportunity for someone with the menuing speed of Penguin to rearrange items in the inventory. They probably get about a good, what would you say, about 15 or so seconds at least. And that can be valuable time to arrange things just where you need them, so that when you do actual menus in the field and you need to access items, they're in the places that you need them to be, so that you can do those menus much more quickly.
At the same time, if you run away while the crumble has happened, you actually speed up the crumble. So it's kind of an interesting viewpoint when you go really deep down the rabbit hole of how much time you want to spend doing that versus how much time you want to spend running away.
I mean, and you could do a little bit of both if you wanted to. You could do some menuing, get the stuff where you need to go, and then get out of there and run the rest of the way to save that time. So all of these very minute optimizations when it comes to running this. He was on track for a 3-dagger there. So to explain this fight here, so the way that this is supposed to happen in vanilla is you're not supposed to attack. I'm sorry, in the casual run, you're not supposed to attack at all. He's supposed to say some stuff, and then he eventually disappears. However, because the Paladin Edward can equip the Dancing Dagger, and because that Dark Knight only has 1,000 HP, we can throw Dancing Daggers at it until it dies, and this is faster. If you get good damage rolls, you can do it in only 3 daggers. If you get extremely abysmal damage rolls, it will take 5. I'd say about 90% of the time, it's going to take 4.
Yeah, I think I've only seen 5 happen twice in like all my years of watching FF4. So also to add to that, obviously, if you attack, it's what keeps Paladin Edward saying, do not fight now. You must be a paladin. Whatever. Another thing to bring up is that in the JP version of FF4, this Paladin Dark Knight Cecil's battle, this Dark Knight Cecil actually has like 17,000 HP. I don't know why they changed it to 1,000 here. Maybe they thought Americans were too dumb and would keep fighting or something. But yeah, that's why this is something you only see on the FF2 US version.
I mean, they're not wrong. We do keep fighting. At least, yeah, speedrunners. I think I actually could have gone for the fight command to kill, but I wasn't counting enough to be confident going for this flag.
So now that Edward is a paladin, kind of the walk down the mountain takes us through a new journey, which is that since Edward is level 1 and kind of the back attack, surprise attack, strike first equation is driven primarily by level, it ends up being a lot more dangerous walking down than walking up as far as those back attacks go. But Penguin has been dodging them really good lately. This has been a really good run for back attacks so far.
So, sorry. So since we have this little walk down the mountain, we just were rated by the wonderful Couch23, who was so kind as to do a run for us earlier today of Final Fantasy IV Unprecedented Crisis. I want to just say hello to everyone who came in from Couch's chat. I'm pretty sure y'all know what's going on here, but we are currently having Penguin8r run Final Fantasy IV no64. Right now, we're doing a little walk back, and we're going to be closing out some naming incentives soon. So after we get through the Yang fight, we're going to be closing out the naming incentives for Yang and Tella. Currently, Tella is named Edward, and Yang is named Edward. If y'all would like to change that, you can go ahead and donate. I'll also link to the incentive sheet so you can see where stuff stands currently. We did have a donation come in while you were up there on Mount Ordeals. Someone named, I believe, Shala, donated $5 and said, "Let's continue the confusion by naming Sid Vonnie." So,
I like it.
I mean, you both are beautiful beard bros, so I think it works.
Beautiful beard bros unite.
Absolutely. So anyway, y'all, please continue to enjoy RPGs We Love Too, and thank you all so much for everyone who has given support so far, and anyone who might want to give support in the future. And I'll turn it back over to our wonderful runner and commentators.
So we saw the we saw that nice poem there. That's actually, so when you become Paladin Edward, you get what's called the Legend Sword, and that poem that's there is actually inscribed on, I don't know if it's on the blade, it's somewhere on the sword itself. You'll have to take our word for it, because obviously you never actually see the sword, but that's what's going on. So anyway, so you come back here, and the elder was like, "Oh, hey, wow, you actually became a paladin. Didn't expect that to happen. Okay, cool. I guess you can continue to go on, because you've proven yourself, and we're going to open up the Serpent Road, which easily has the best music in the game while you're going through it." So I'll just sit back and let you enjoy it.
And if you're wondering how all that text could fit on one sword, it's a lot shorter in Japanese, actually. It's incredibly short comparatively to the two versions. So anyway, our boy Edward strolls back into town, finds out that actually Yang, for now, is the captain of the guard now, and realizes he's got to do some unbrainwashing.
Look at me. I am the captain. That's Yang's voice.
Yes, that Yang, like, doing the whole pirate. Yes, we do.
So what you'll see in this fight, actually, is Penguin will be setting up the back row glitch on Cecil now. Sorry, on Edward now, where he will actually equip the bow and arrow on Edward and then take them off in the next action. You have to take an action for it to actually take effect. And at this point, he can successfully just, take it all off and burn it down in the bottom of the inventory.
If I had my menu set up better, then it would have been basically no time lost to do that, but my arrows weren't quite where I wanted, so it took me a little bit more time to get up there, but still pretty fast to set that up there.
Yeah, he had, because of doing the backups, he had the change rod on Palm instead of Tella, so he had to kind of maneuver around that. So I believe, Scala, we're not very far off at all from these names now. So you get one last cutscene, boys and girls, to make a push for this donation. Unless you want us to just try to call everybody Edward for the rest of the run. I mean, we'll try to keep up, but yeah, it's gonna melt our brains.
You have like Paladin Edward, and you're gonna have like Old Edward and Punchy Edward. So many Edwards.
It's going to be like 8 Edwards and a Rivers. So that's basically what we're looking at.
I I get frozen way early in this game, okay? It's you we're going to be talking about the whole time, Bonnie.
About to say, I'm like,
Yeah.
we have a Demi, we have an Ultros,
This
we have a
is true.
Tifa.
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun to talk about how I take a virus to the face during Dark Elf.
Could I have those names, please, for telling you?
I'll give one more check, but yes, Tella and Yang will both be named Edward.
Great. Getting some early practice on that Edward percent run.
My disdain only grows. Thank you to all the donators for Relvo.
I've speedrun the menus and those naming spots are the hardest part of Final Fantasy IV.
So we're going to do a little shopping here. This is one of the very few shops that is actually routed in, and it's because the karate and headband armor are both in the shop here. Karate and headband actually will wind up giving +8 strength to any character who equips both of them. And this is very desirable for our team of attackers. There aren't a lot of good defensive armors that work on magic in this game, so for the most part, kind of headband karate is all we'll be riding with for the characters for most of the game. And as far as where we are in the storyline, once we beat up Edward, Edward and Edward had to talk with Edward, and they decided, hey, how are we going to break into Baron Castle? And then Edward was like, hey, I've got this Baron key. And then Edward was like, cool, that's a great idea. You can just use this key to get in. And so Edward, Demi, and Rivers then decided to break into Baron via the waterway. This is one of the most dangerous segments in the game for back attacks, as you are seeing on the screen, because everybody is low level and everybody is slow. So this is a prime spot for the next, I want to say, 35 minutes of the run for Penguin to get controlled by back attacks and surprise attacks.
It is kind of a consolation that they are hitting Yang, or the bald Edward, I guess, because we do actually want to kill off the twins and Yang in the next fight, and that's because we're going to start manipulating the experience a bit to try to get some of our characters higher level.
Yeah, the main goal of all that experience routing will be to get Edward the Dragoon back at level 19 when he joins the party at the end of the Tower of Zot. And this increases his damage greatly. It's actually what we call a multiplier for him. So he will get a whole extra set of rolls. And yeah, it's very important for the rest of the speed run, and especially for the Balboa's fight. So for the next 3 or 4 fights, you'll see us kill off characters depending on how Penguin wants to route this. I haven't actually watched him play this part of it yet, but yeah, you'll see a lot of people just fall on down left and right. Yeah, my favorite character was Edward once, but now it's Ultros. So this menu here for Penguin, what he's going to be doing is going in and using one of the most popular glitches in FF4 history, which is the MP underflow. Basically, by on the same frame hitting a spell you can't use and a spell that or a slot that you can use, you will underflow the MP of anybody who happens to happens to almost be out. So right now, Edward the Sage has about 65,000 MP. There's one spell in the game that he learns, but never gets the magic points to use normally. I wonder if we will see it in the next fight. It would be very surprising.
That moves the media up to its first spot. We forgot that part.
Dogs don't know. It's not bacon. Anyway, as you can see in this fight, a lot of it is about kind of moving dancing daggers around to kill various people. We've already seen Rivers killed on screen. We're about to see Demi. Penguin messed up the menu there, but that's okay. And at the end of this fight, we're going to have Edward and Edward alive. And of course, Edward, the Paladin, will gain some good levels here, and Edward the Sage will just continue to be the focal point of the run for a while here.
While we're keeping on with the dog food jokes, we're about to make bacon strips out of this boss with our Meteor spell. So you see the power of Meteor. Now, normally that boss is actually pretty tricky to deal with. Should you happen to forget to do your underflow before that fight, which a lot of us have done, trying to do it without the Meteor is it's hard. So because you're not set up to do so, the Meteor here really masks a lot of deficiencies that your low level party has against certain bosses. So yeah, I mean, we can't really underscore how much Tella really carries a certain, a significant section of this run.
Of course, here against Keinatsu, we actually will be using Lit 3 instead because he is ultra weak to it. So normally in this game, the way ultra weaknesses work is you would take 4 times the damage. So in that case, that would normally would have been like a 900 HP damage. The 3 became like 3600, and so our buddy Keinatsu, the fake king, dies on one hit thanks to our boy Edward, who actually hit the right Lit 3 like right on. That was a really nice roll.
That was a nice roll.
It's 4,000 HP total, so it's a little extra from Cecil and Yang. I mean, Edward and Edward.
I also couldn't help but notice that during that battle, everybody not named Edward was dead.
Edward and the Deadwards, baby.
So here is the now second appearance in the game of our engineer friend Sid, who is going to learn about the fact that his king is no longer his king, but he's like, no, it's cool. I will join you on your fight, and we'll get out of here in my super sweet airship. But before that happens, we have a pretty notorious cutscene here. Rivers, do you want to kind of explain what's going on here, kind of your feelings on what's going on here?
Sure. So the walls are closing in on our party, and Rivers and Demi heroically step up and turn themselves to stone so that the walls stop. This makes absolutely no sense, but it kind of is just like running Free Enterprise in that we just sacrifice ourselves all the time, so it works. Good names. Good names all around.
Damn Rivers!
So anyway, at this point, this is one of the longest cutscenes in the game. Actually, if you mash X on the wrong frame, you can soft lock here. This is a fun fact that has never happened to anybody in this chat ever. And we'll finally, at the end of it all, we'll finally have an airship to play with. So, Scarlett, if you want to come in and remind everybody of a few things, by all means, this is a great time.
Oh, wonderful. So very quickly, we do have one more close naming incentive, which is to name Sid. Currently, Sid is going to be named Vani. So if you want to change that, you only have a little bit of time left. We'll then have a pretty big gap between when you can name Edge and Fusoya. They will not be named until we get to the moon. Currently, Edge is named Edward, and Fusoya is also named Edward. And then after that, we do have naming incentives for Swords and Serpents, where the characters are currently named Dragon, Song, Ultros, and Phoebes. And then after that, you can decide if in Dragon Warrior, if you would like to make us take the princess to the Dragon Lord. And this is just a reminder for RPGs We Love To. We are doing this so that way we members of the RPG Valkyries, a number of us are planning to attend RPG Limit Break. This is going to help cover our rooms, airfare, incidentals, and all of that. We have 2 runners who will be in RPG Limit Break proper. Silverfire and Sparkover will be racing Dragon Quest Randomizer. And then we also have RPG Chick, who has a backup run with Shining Force CD, and Keishura, who has a backup run for Child of Light. So we would like to make sure that all of them get there, and I believe also myself and Natara are also planning to attend. So we hope to get there to be able to see everyone and to help out and support RPG Limit Break, which is an absolutely wonderful event. All the money that they raise goes to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, and we're very happy to be supporting them. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Penguin Rippers and Vani as we continue through Final Fantasy IV.
Speaking of...
I will double check and make absolutely sure, but yes, Sid is going to be named Vani.
Hooray. Speaking of people who will be having runs at RPG Limit Break this year, the person you're watching, Penguin8r, he is going to be one of 4 people who will be racing a Final Fantasy IV free enterprise seat. So very cool to have even more people here participating in the event that will be also be running at the RPG Limit Break event in May.
Very modest Devani time mentioned his Newtopia run, which is also going to be there. And I'll be on the couch for Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise as well, so you can feel free to troll me with donations there too. I will take it all in stride. It's all good.
Much like how you're taking it so well here.
It's a kind of stride, isn't it?
Good job, good effort.
Anyway, we're about to run into God, what's its name? Katesith 2.8? I forget. I'm sorry.
2, I believe.
KS2, yeah. So we're about to get the Twin Harp to open up the Dark Elf Cave. And first Penguin's going to take about 1 million steps as part of his step route. This is another one of those spots where you can take steps to move encounter tables, shift encounters where they might occur, and optimally kind of route the steps of this game.
So what's going on here is Kate S2 no longer has the will to fight, and instead gives you a harp, which none of you know how to play, and you're like, yo, what are we going to do with this? And he's like, trust me, I'm confined to a bed. And you're like, okay. So then you go into the Magnet Cave, which is where we're going to be going next. And the quirk with that particular dungeon is if any of your characters are wearing anything that is metal, they will be rendered permanently paralyzed when they are in combat. We are actually going to use this to our advantage to save a significant amount of time when it comes to fighting the boss, and we'll explain that a little more when we get there. But first, we get to hunt down a black chocobo. It is kind of a bright purple, but just take our word for it. It is indeed black.
The text said so anyway. So this is one of the scarier dungeons in the game for walking. Not as Vani said, not only are 3 of your characters paralyzed to start with, but also there are some encounters here that can cast a paralyzed spell on you as well, which will just leave you just hanging there for like 30 seconds, being able to do nothing if you happen to get a back attack with that sort of thing. Even if that doesn't happen, there are a lot of high-speed monsters here, and back attacks are very common and actually can be very damaging for runs. Not only survival, but time just generally as well.
You know, I'm looking at these screens when the battle comes up, and I'm looking at the names, and I realize that I'm surrounded by Edwards.
Whew. That mage times 2. That's the one, baby. That's the one. That's the one that's gonna get you. So yeah, Bonnie and the Edwards continue their courageous journey to the actual inner sanctum here of Dark Elf's Cave.
I think I was supposed to safety save before I came in here, but I forgot. So hopefully nothing goes badly.
Yeah, this has actually been, I will say, I think we're at like 2 back attacks right now. This has actually been fairly lucky. You can go ahead.
Only 2 up to this point is phenomenal.
Right. Well, I mean, once we actually get past this next dungeon after this, we will be in a really good spot as far as our step routing, because we'll have more tools to take care of that sort of thing. Make the back attacks less intrusive, but for now, this has been pretty good. And you're about to see Vonnie put on some iron gloves. You want to talk about that, Vonnie?
Yeah, so there was probably something that a lot of people wouldn't notice. It's very subtle that happened when we were doing the menu right before we did the mist clip. We removed iron gloves from Kane because, I mean, he wasn't going to need them. We weren't going to get in any more battles with him. But we used that to just really quickly toss a metal item of some sort onto Sid so that now all 4 of your party members will have metal. Now, the first part of that Dark Elf fight, the way that is scripted is that you are supposed to die. However, in the magnet cave, if all 4 of your characters are paralyzed, that is considered a party wipe, because you are going to be unable to free yourself from this permanent paralysis, and that counts as deaths too. So basically, as soon as that quote-unquote fight begins, it ends. So that is how we use the quirk of this cave to our advantage to save time. Otherwise, you have to wait for Dark Elf to kill you.
Yeah, in the JP version, they actually use, I think, iron arrows here. It's kind of funny, because they're not doing glitches, obviously. So, Bonnie, do you want to talk about why you're going to get a virus to the face here?
Yeah, because y'all are mean, and I don't want to talk about it. No, for real though. So the reason why we do that is for something called experience routing. Whenever you gain experience from a battle, it is distributed evenly among all members that are still alive. So because we basically are not going to use Vonnie for the rest of the run as far as combat goes, we don't need to give him experience, whereas it can be much better used on certain other characters. Now, this is all going to be routed out pretty intricately for the rest of the run, because we would like to have Cecil at a certain level. I'm sorry, Paladin Edward at a certain level once we reach Zeromus, because especially for a lot of you that play the Free Enterprise is that Cecil will be kind of a determining factor when it comes to the relative agility of Zeromus. So having him at a particular amount of agility is going to make that fight a lot more palatable, just like it is in the randomizer.
Concern Froge for that fight, Penguin?
Yeah, it did too much damage, actually. Unlucky.
Yeah, sometimes you actually will get unlucky there because you're trying to keep Dark Elf under the threshold before it changes over, and your dumb characters decide, hey, I'm gonna hit for 1,000 this turn because I can, so whatever. And yeah, the way that worked out was Dark Elf's weak got off on on Paladin Edward, and he was able to knock Paladin Edward out before the weak got off. So could be some interesting route stuff going on here.
I actually kind of like having Cecil die there. It helps Rydia get a bit more experience, and then she can hit level 19 for Dr. Lee fight, which helps a little bit.
You know, one last thing to mention about that Dark Elf fight. is that you'll notice that when you do enough damage to the Dark Elf, he says me change, and then he turns into that kind of coily dragon thing. Well, when that happens, the flag, the boss bit, that would normally make pretty much all bosses immune to the weak spell disappears. So we can time it so that Tella is casting weak right away after that transformation. And what weak does is it reduces a target's HP to a random single-digit amount, so anywhere between 1 and 9. So once we do that, all we need to do is just hit it ever so lightly, and it dies. So that's how you dispose of the final phase of Dark Elf so quickly.
Yeah, and there's not really much debate about whether this was intentional or not. It's something that was coded that way. It's used in the Japanese glitchless runs of this game as well, so it's very clearly intended for you to use weak there.
All right, so coming up now is the Tower of Zot. In my opinion, this is one of the scarier dungeons when it comes to the random encounters that you're going to get here, because the relative agility of the enemies that you're going to fight in here scales way up compared to where you just were. So there's going to be a much higher frequency of back attacks and surprise attacks. And boy, just right as I'm saying it, here comes one. And especially with Sage Edward being in the front row for these back attacks, if you are not careful when it comes to HP maintenance, wipes here are a very real possibility.
Yeah, and kind of the what do I want to say? Like the scariest way to run this game actually is kind of not doing the armor shops, which Penguin has actually done. But if you do not do like the city armor shop and you don't put a paladin shield on Paladin Edward here, this is a horrifying walk. This is like any random encounter can end you. So we're stopping off real quick to find this flame dog chest body. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so there's also going to be probably a little bit of experience routing here, hopefully happening. The reason why we intentionally take this fight is because our reward for this is the fire sword. The fire sword is going to be very important when it comes to our first actual battle confrontation with Golbez, being able to kill him before he really gets an opportunity to get up and rolling and potentially have you wipe in that fight. So what you also saw, again, a very subtle thing that Penguin set up there was he actually duped that sword. So instead of having one, now he has two. Normally the item dupe that we do like in the beginning of the game is to underflow it so that we have 65 some thousand of an item that we can sell for obscene amounts of gold. Here we are duping an item because we want to use multiple copies of it.
Yeah, we want the fire sword to be both for Edward and Dragoon Edward.
Yes.
Right. I think I got that right. It's one of Dragoon Edward's best weapons at this point in the game, and he will use it to great effect both on Valvolus and against Golbez, who is weak to fire, which is the big reason that it's picked up in this run and also in no-CW.
I think I'd be okay even if they touch it from my deal.
This is a marathon, Penguin.
Just one more encounter.
You're going to underflow too?
Oh yeah, I could do that.
What was I saying about forgetting to do that earlier?
Also save in case I do anything else.
Is that going to burn any steps for you?
I'm not sure if it costs one. I think it costs one extra step. Probably not too big a deal.
So the Maga Sisters in a casual run are one of the most terrifying boss fights that you run into. The middle sister here is putting up a wall almost immediately, so you can't hit her with anything of Sage Edward spells, which is obviously really, really bad. And then these other two twins will bounce a lot of spells on you that do a lot of damage for this point in the game and can even one-shot Sage Edward in the right roll. But we happen to have underflowed Sage Edward's MP here. And so he's just going to cast Meteor and blow these people out of the Laura.
Yeah, and I mean, to underscore what I was saying earlier, without Meteo here, and with your party being the level that it is, even if you did have a fully powered Vani there, this is going to be a very difficult fight. But as long as you can make sure that Tella doesn't get hit with two spells in a row without healing, you can crack off that Meteo, and the fight is easy as well as peasy.
And so, my friends, it's come time to say goodnight to one of our Edwards. Sage Edward here is going to go in kind of a berserk rage, and the game wants this to be the first time that he casts Meteor. However, we've already seen it twice, so really, what it is, it's kind of on a charge count, a la FF1's, and he ran out of charges, and that's kind of what we got for you guys. I'm sorry. Sage Edward is going to fall here. This is one of the prime bathroom breaks of the run. If you ever happen to be running this game and need to just run for it, this is the time right now.
Now, though we won't be seeing it in this run at all because it's not useful, what this cutscene can be useful for, if you're running the no credits warp category, is you can actually pause during using the start button to pause during attack animations. And what this will accomplish is, while it's paused, the in-game timer will be paused, which is actually something that can be critical for getting through that getting through the 64 door glitch. But again, in the absence of doing that, you basically just have to let that cutscene roll out. There is no way to speed it up.
Yeah, you can save a few frames with pausing. You happen to get lucky here or there, but otherwise there's not much point to using it in the speedrun. A lot of it is kind of about the lag reduction of the music itself, which you wouldn't think that would be a big deal, but actually the lag from the music, it kind of does drag the game along a little bit. So we've lost Edward, our boy. Bible thumbs for Sage Edward. But don't worry, we're about to get Dragoon Edward back in the party. And we'll finally save the one true hero, Ultros.
Yeah, we essentially do an Edward swap.
So as we were talking about way back in Baron, the ultimate goal of that experience riding was to wind up here with Dragoon Edward at level 19. He gets a multiplier from this, so his attack power greatly increases. It's something that's really worth all the running around we do as far as time saves. So Penguin will finally get control of this again and plop that fire sword right on Dragoon Edward, and then we'll instantly run into Valvolus, and Dragoon Edward is going to be the key for that fight. This fight has been redone a lot over the last couple of years. It's one of the few active areas where I think there's still maybe time to save. And kind of the way the current fight works is we will be trying to buffer everything in so that pretty much as soon as somebody does an action, another action is either being input or also otherwise targeted at the same time.
Yeah, now, so the gimmick for fighting Valvolus here, which is going to reappear momentarily, is that she has two forms. She has her tornado form, and then she has her non-tornado form. while she's in tornado form, she cannot be really damaged very much at all, and she will counterattack when hit, unless Kane jumps on her, which will stop her spin. Yes, must stop her spin. Edward, jump! And at which point, the first form that you saw there before she did the little and becomes the tornado here, that is her kind of standard form. The weak on Paladin Edward here that is not what you want to see, because we are going to want to rely on Paladin Edward doing lots of covering to tank damage for many of Vonnie and Karate Edward, with them being in the HP critical status. So we're going to try and crack off some slows on Valveless here to slow her down. I think that makes sense. That's self-explanatory. And then we're also going to be paying very close attention to our turns and our ATB. And if Penguin is able to get all of this right, a cane jump will come out right around the time that she goes into tornado form, and then he will land on her, and she essentially will stay out of tornado form for really any significant amount of time.
Yeah, the slow spell actually is doubly important in this fight, because when bosses have transform scripts, slow actually interacts with those in a lot different way than it would the normal ATB. So it's actually kind of double slowing her already, as it were. So like the slow casts are actually getting like quad effective here, all because of that transform animation and how that ties into the battle ATB. So you saw that Karate Edward kick. That was not about swag, actually. That was a choice, kind of setting up the rest of the attacks for this cycle here. And very end of the fight, we pretty much just got Ultros throwing Cure 2s on Paladin Edward and everybody else fighting.
That fight went a little poorly. I think I threw the first Cure 2 slightly the wrong time. Ended up throwing the turn order off a little bit, so I was hoping to kill with Kane's last attack, but it hit during a tornado, which makes it easier.
Yeah, it looked like that second Cure 2 was kind of in menu too long or something. And yeah, it was just a little bit off the entire way. You kind of see it. But no worries. Not a big deal at this point of the fight. It's just a little bit slower. And once Dragoon Edward gets in the air, finishes Val off, not a bad time at all right now. So as Val goes down, you can see more inventory management happening. A lot of the stuff is going to the bottom. This is stuff that we're not going to use for the rest of the run at all. So, your iron arrows, your one-off items and whatnot, those all just head right to the bottom of the inventory.
Real estate is valuable, even in your inventory. You know what else would be valuable? And I think Scala might be able to speak to this. That would be donations to the RPGs we love to cause. Would you like to elaborate on that, please?
Oh, wonderful. And actually, Moobot, on point. Thank you, Moobot. as it says in chat, this is RPGs We Love Too. We are currently raising money to help members of the RPG Valkyries attend RPG Limit Break in May. So this is going to help cover our hotel, airfare, other incidental costs. We have 2 Valkyries who will be putting on a run in RPG Limit Break. We have Silverfire and Sparkover, who are going to be racing Dragon Warrior Randomizer. And then we do have Keishira and RPG Chick, who are on backup runs. So, and then myself and Natara will also hopefully be attending to not only support our Valkyries, but to support other runs, such as like Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise, like we had the chance to do for GDQ. We have a lot of different donation incentives that you can donate towards. We have 2 names left for this run, to name Edward and to name Edge and Fusoya. Edge is currently Edward, and Fusoya is also currently Edward. If you'd like to change that, you do have plenty of time. We will not be doing their names until we reach the moon, just to give everyone kind of an idea of the time there. After that, we will be having Vanguard Bandits. Sorry, not Vanguard Bandits. Vagrant Story. Sorry there. We're having Vagrant Story, and then we'll be having, after that, Swords and Serpents, which does have donation incentives to name the party there. You can also check out our schedule for all of the other runs that are coming up this week. We have plenty to go still. We have lots of lovely runs put on by so many wonderful people who have been so supportive, as have all of you out there in chat, just by watching, spreading the word, and of course, donating. So thank you all so much for that. I'm going to turn it back over to Penguin, Rivers, and Vani as we go underground.
So what happened was we received a magma key, we tossed it down a well, and a mountain exploded, which is exactly what you would expect to happen when you throw a key in a well. And now we are discovering that there are airships and tanks fighting like cats and dogs, even in the subterranean sphere. So our airship gets caught up in it. We are tossed from it, and now we have to go into the dwarf castle to hopefully elicit some help from its denizens.
Yeah, one thing we're not going to be doing in this run is walking up and down the stairs 64 times.
Which makes me sad.
That's not part of this run. So only you'll get like a momentary minute time save to make up for like the hour that you lose. But anyway, gonna go straight into 2 of the more one of the most dangerous fights in the game, the dolls. Vani has a lot of experience with the dolls, doesn't he? Vani, what do you think about those dolls?
You know, I think the dolls can definitely be dangerous, but I think kind of their reputation is, I think it's a little stronger than it needs to be. If you have if you kind of steel yourself and have a good amount of concentration, unless things go really pear-shaped, the dolls aren't all that bad. But they are not to be taken lightly, that is for certain.
Yeah, so kind of the gimmick with the dolls was that you can only, if at any point during the battle, only one set of the dolls, either the blue dolls or the red dolls, are left alive, it will turn into one gigantic doll called Calcabrina, which is a monster and hits like a truck. So kind of what Penguin's going to be doing here is kind of balancing his damage around. You'll see Kane jumping the back row dolls. Dragoon Edward jumping the back row dolls. You'll see Karate Edward kicking to kind of spread damage around and lower those damage thresholds. And then you'll see Paladin Edward attacking the front row dolls mainly, although you might see him attack a back row one if it's close to death as well.
You'll also notice female Edward. I mean, what is it? Ultros, I believe?
Ultros.
Yes. She is also at a certain point going to be casting the mute spell on the party. Now, this might seem strange because nobody besides Rosa would be casting magic anyway, so why would you give yourself this status effect? We'll explain a little more as to why that happens in the battle that comes after this one. To note about these dolls, the orange ones up front have 300 hit points. The gray ones in the back have 1,000 hit points. That was an extremely fortunate kick to pick up that doll in the back row. So, way to go, martial arts Edward.
Yeah, Paladin Edward had a kind of a bad damage roll up front there. One other thing to note about these dolls is that every time you use a basic attack on them and doesn't kill them, they will counter with an attack. So if you happen to not be able to kill the doll because of a bad roll, you get double shot, so to speak, on your time loss there.
And with Ultros and MMA Edward both being in the critical status, this is actually perfect because it allows for Paladin Edward to use its auto cover ability, which is going to make this fight very safe. So here we go. We're going to time a jump on the gray one. We're going to queue up an attack on the orange one and Big Doll skip. That was actually an extremely smooth fight. Again, that fight can go sideways very quickly if you're not careful. But Penguin handled that with ease.
Just over here cracking up at MMA Edward.
Like that?
Yeah, that's one of those fights where if you had the Japanese items, it would be a lot easier. But unfortunately, we don't in F2US. So why did Ultros cast that mute spell on the party, Bonnie?
Okay, so the reason why is because when it comes to having adverse status effect on you, there's a order of priority. Now, what normally happens here is Golbez uses that hold gas ability. What that will do is it will put the paralyze effect on all of your characters, and it's a 100% chance to proc. But because the mute status effect has priority, with that being on there, the paralyzed effect will not proc. Now, this is important because Paladin Edward is going to be able to take a turn here after Dragoon Edward lands, whereas he wouldn't be able to do that if he was paralyzed, because the heal from Rydia would come in too late, his ATB would reset, and you wouldn't get that turn until later. Ooh, some really
Paladin Edward
damage rolls. My goodness. So Golbez here has 3,000 HP. The Edward connection here only did about 2,000. So he's still got quite a bit of room to go. Okay, a nice 800 there from. Oh, there we go. Okay, that was enough.
Yep, we were still able to skip Tifa there.
That's good. Okay, very good.
Tifa skip is obviously one of the big parts of this run as far as time saved in this battle. And so Tifa rejoins the party. You wouldn't know it from what actually happened on the field, but whatever, let's life, it's all good.
So what is actually supposed to happen there is that adult Tifa will now come in, unparalyze you. She will actually join the battle in the middle of it and will help you fight Golbez. However, because shit,
Yes.
it looks like audio.
Yes, Penguin, you might need to leave and re-enter the call to reset your Discord audio.
Unfortunately, it's probably not going to fix it because it sounds fine for me. So I think it's just my connection to the stream, but we'll try.
We'll see.
Chat, how are we sounding now? Are we still doing Rolo commentary or what?
Yeah, unfortunately, we still are. The audio is still messed up.
Okay.
Well, anyway, real clutch. That happened.
So yeah, what did happen there is that we basically just skipped an entire dungeon of the game by using Tifa's warp spell to go back into that crystal room to pick up the crystal that you would normally have to go through a whole big deal to get to.